MapDad here. So in the last video, I talked about MapDad's newfound freedom to travel as an empty nester. That empty nesting actually led MapWife to come up with the brilliant idea of visiting one of the birds that had flown the nest. Our son was spending his first college semester studying in London, so it was an opportunity for MapDad to go abroad for the first time in more than 20 years. We traveled between Thanksgiving and Christmas in the hopes of smaller crowds. Our flight to London was on Virgin Atlantic through their partnership with Delta. Now, London is massive, so figuring out where to stay was a challenge. I settled on the Athenaeum Hotel and Residences in the Mayfair neighborhood. It had come highly recommended by friends. It was near an underground station connected by 3 lines, and with a splurge, we had our own one-bedroom apartment, complete with kitchenette and washer-dryer. It was also very close to both Hyde Park and Green Park, green oases not far removed from the busy London streets. We flew overnight, so the key was to hit the ground running. It was onto the London Underground and the Westminster stop on the Jubilee line where Big Ben stares at you as you emerge from the station. Quite the first impression. That morning we hit Westminster Abbey, founded by Benedictine monks in 960 AD and the setting for every royal coronation since 1066. Your head starts spinning when you come across the burial sites for various kings and queens. It still serves as a church with regular worship services. Admission here and to a lot of other popular British sites are not cheap. £27, about $33. But if you're a fan of history, it's well worth it. From here, it was a quick walk to the Churchill War Rooms. It was in these basement hallways where former Prime Minister Winston Churchill directed the British efforts during World War II. The next day, we tried to get close to see the changing of the guard at Buckingham Palace. The problem was that hundreds of others had the same idea, so not wanting to battle the crowds, we scurried up a concrete wall to catch a view of the procession leading into the palace, if not seeing the actual events taking place inside the gates. No big deal, a bit of pomp and circumstance, I suppose, was enough. MapDad and MapWife had a chance to see MapSon play in a university soccer or football match, I should say. Now, that's not him scoring, but still a blast. My son wanted us to get the true English football experience, complete with a constant stream of F-bombs launched in every direction. That night, we walked across the Tower Bridge to see the building where my son was taking his classes. It was just a stone's throw from the bridge itself.
Find the gap between the train and the platform.
The next day, MapDad and MapWife split up. MapWife enjoying high tea and a tower of goodies at Peggy Portion. MapDad took the train west to Windsor Castle. A note here, MapDad had bought an Oyster card with an unlimited week of rides, but with several train rides operating in the greater London area, I was disappointed to learn the train to Windsor was not included in that, so a separate $25 round-trip ticket had to be bought. Now, it was an easy hour hop out to Windsor and the Windsor and Eton Riverside station, and a short walk to the castle. It is uphill. The castle bills itself as the oldest and largest occupied castle in the world. Founded by William the Conqueror in the 11th century, 40 monarchs have called it home. It is spectacular in that medieval monarchy way. Visitors also have the chance to pay their respects to Queen Elizabeth II, who is at her final resting place in the King George Memorial Chapel. It was in Windsor I had the chance to sample one of Britain's finer fast food places, Nando's, mostly grilled chicken in their special peri-peri sauce. I went for a limited edition orange sauce, which was not bad at all. On the train back into town, I had a chance to switch to the Underground, which, by the way, if you can, ride that brand new Elizabeth line at least once. It's a major east-west line with some stops at major transfer points. I took it to the Tottenham Court Road stop and went to the British Museum. This free museum has a number of displays, some dating back millions of years. And with only an hour or so, I found a map that led you to the greatest hits.
On Christmas Day of that year.
And day 4 was another 1,000-year-old attraction, the Tower of London. A fortress, a palace, and a prison. This is a must-see. Again, around £30, $35 to get in. We listened briefly to the beefeaters who guard the palace and then went off on our own. Off with your head. Now, fortunately, there were no quizzes on the history of British kings and queens here because I'd be lost in a heartbeat. But I did see where the famous ravens live. The story here, if they ever left the tower, the kingdom would fall. The crown jewels are also here. No pictures allowed inside. Fortunately, this time of year, there was not a long wait to see them. Nightfall and a trip to the theater. We walked from our hotel to Piccadilly Circus, a smaller version of New York's Times Square. We had tickets to the Piccadilly Theater in the West End to catch Moulin Rouge, which was absolutely sensational. Day 5, we did something for our son, a tour of London Stadium, home to the 2012 Olympic Games and current home of West Ham of the English Premier League. We got to see the locker room and walk out onto the pitch. From here, MapDad broke away to hit the Tate Modern, one of the best collections of modern art in the world. Even a porcelain urinal by Marcel Duchamp considered a classic. Discuss. We didn't eat out much in London. What we did do was a lot of takeout from the M&S food store just outside the Green Park Underground station. They had a great selection of grab-and-go meals, which we would just bring back to our room. The next morning, MapDad again went off on his own to pay tribute to his favorite band. A 5-minute walk from the Jubilee Line's St. John's Wood station is this crosswalk on Abbey Road, made famous by the Beatles as an album cover. People all day dodge traffic to take their own photos, and you can leave your name outside the Abbey Road studios. The next morning, an early wake-up call to take the Eurostar train from London to Paris. In 2 hours and 15 minutes, you're whisked from one city to the other. If you buy a standard or business premier class ticket, standard premier, I should say, or business premier class ticket, you also get a meal on board. Now, prices range from $100 to $325 each way. Now, it may seem steep, but there's no running to the airport. In Paris, we stayed in the 9th arrondissement, one of 20 that make up the city of Paris. It was a quick walk from the Gare du Nord train station to our hotel, the Hotel Beige. Now, a realtor would call the room cozy, but for about $250 a night, I would highly recommend it. It's within a 5-minute walk to 2 metro lines, and it comes with breakfast included, and it was a beautiful spread. Now, with only 2.5 days here, we again hit the ground running. First off to the Louvre to battle the crush of people to catch a glimpse of the Mona Lisa and the Venus de Milo. Any Coldplay fans here? You might recognize this painting from the Viva La Vida album. It's Delacroix's Liberty leading the people. Now, the Louvre, it's so massive, you can't do it all. Pick out a chunk that looks interesting. And dinner that night was at the Grand Café Capucines, which has been around nearly 150 years. A massive amount of shellfish was consumed. The prawns were delicious. The next morning, it was off to see Notre Dame, still under construction after that devastating fire a few years ago. Then to the Eiffel Tower. As you may have noticed, we didn't see a lot of sun in our trip, maybe a half day out of the 9 in total. We ate at a small restaurant, the Castle Cafe, right near the base of the tower. Got some pretty lame reviews on TripAdvisor, but it did serve up a decent French onion soup and beef bourguignon. Speaking of beef, dinner that night was at a place called Les Saisons, the Seasons, a little place near our hotel that served up one of the best ribeyes for 2 with French fries for €80. I highly recommend this place. Our final day in Paris, it was off to the Musée d'Orsay, which picks up where the Louvre left off with a focus on the Impressionist and Post-Impressionist eras. I've been fortunate to see many of these artists when they've been the focus of exhibitions in the U.S., but here, they are all here. It is an embarrassment of riches, a must see. Oh yes, a quick shout out to Maison Zhang on the Rue de Martyrs, not far from our hotel. A delicious variety of, I don't know what you'd call it, French-Chinese fusion. Great grab-and-go place. Then a train that night back to London and the underground back to Heathrow Airport, where we stayed at the Aerotel just outside the arrivals area in Terminal 3. Again, the room super cozy, but a worthwhile $200 expense, so we weren't racing to the airport in the morning to catch our flight home. Wow, MapDad's first trip overseas in decades, a huge success. It has whet my appetite for more adventures like this one. I'm MapDad, hoping to point your travels in the right direction.